Are we online?
Yeah, we are online live, sir.
Okay. So today's
Good evening, everyone.
yeah.
Good evening, everyone. So we are having yet another session of pediatric urology by none other than Dr. Ramesh Babu. I sincerely thank him for taking all his time and effort to teach the upcoming urologists, the budding urologists, as well as these classes. I feel is beneficial for even the consultant level also. So today we'll be discussing about antenatal hydronephrosis. And with us, we also have a final year student, Dr. Bhaumik Barad, who is from Sri Ramchandra Medical College. He's a final year MCS urology student. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nitish. So today, the program is going to be like how we discuss cases in a Viva or ward rounds, where we'll be showing the X-rays and situations and scenarios. And basically, we'll try to elicit the same questions which we are usually asked in the exams. So the exam going PGs will really benefit from what kind of questions for each situation and what kind of scenarios, how to discuss it, how to take it further, mainly based on the exam oriented practical aspects. So with that note, I will start with the projection of the first case scenario. Uh, now the moving, yes. Now the first case scenario we have is 32-week primey who comes for antenatal counseling with an ultrasound findings where the fetal weight is around 2 kilos. There are no other anomalies. There is moderate dilatation of the left renal pelvis. APD is 9 millimeter. The right renal pelvis is normal. They have reported that APD is 4 millimeter. The bladder is normal. Liquor is normal. Now this patient comes to you for antenatal counseling. What do you want to say, Dr. Bhavmik?
Right, sir. Looking at the parameters, uh, there is dilatation of 9 mm on the left side. That means according to the anterior posterior renal pelvic diameter in the third trimester, it is considered a mild form of mild moderate form of dilatation. And on the right side, it's normal. Less than 7 in the third trimester, it's considered normal. So I will counsel patient regarding the condition, and I will put patient on follow-up.
Okay, and these parents are quite educated. They are so worried. They want to know what will be the outlook for the patient. They want to know whether this patient might need a surgery later.
Right, sir. Looking at these parameters, there are high chances of resolution of this hydronephrosis postnatally. So I will counsel patient attenders that these are going to resolve over the time.
Very good. And based on the anteroposterior pelvic diameter, how do you grade the severity of the hydronephrosis in each trimester as well as after birth?
Right. Antenatal hydronephrosis is defined on the basis of APD, which can be mild, moderate, severe. Mild form in the second trimester between 4 to 7 mm. Less than 4 in a second trimester is considered normal. In third trimester, 7 to 9 mm is mild, and after birth between 10 to 15 mm is considered normal. And when it is more than 10 mm in the second trimester, more than 15 mm in the third trimester, and after birth more than 20 mm is considered severe one.
Now, how do you measure the AP diameter and where is it measured?
AP diameter is measured at the level of renal hilum while keeping the fetal spine at 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock position.
Right. So you have to be very clear that you're not measuring the other longitudinal diameter, because for the comparison purposes and for resolution or duration purposes, you need a uniform way of measuring the diameter, right?
Right, sir.
Now, in this patient, after what will be the next step? Like, what is your plan?
My plan will be to do ultrasound at 48 to 72 hours postnatally to look for the hydronephrosis and to risk stratify further.
And why do you do that after 48 to 72 hours? Why can't you do it on day one?
Because of physiological dehydration, there will be false negative results in initial hours of the life because of physiological dehydration.
Okay. Now you do an ultrasound after 72 hours. The ultrasound report says normal. Both kidneys are normal. Are you happy with that, or will you still follow up for one more ultrasound?
Sir, I will call this patient after 4 weeks for the second ultrasound, because even after 7 days of life, there may be chances of false negative results after 7 days as well.
Okay, so this is the finding what we have projected here on ultrasound. What is your comment? The top one is the right kidney and the bottom one is the left kidney. What's your comment on that?
Sir, I am able to appreciate dilatation, pelvic calcial dilatation on the left side of the kidney, and PCS is compact on the right side.
Right. So the diameter they have mentioned is like 17 millimeter. So at this stage, what is your possible diagnosis or differential diagnosis in this patient?
Right, sir. Looking at APD, 17 mm on the left side, it is considered intermediate. It is considered intermediate dilatation of the PCS, and probably because of PUG obstruction, or it can be because of transient hydronephrosis as well.
Right. What do you think? What do you mean by transient hydronephrosis? Why does it happen?
Transient hydronephrosis is because of dilatation of pelvic calcial system, because of immaturity at the level of uretropelvic junction or at the level of vesico-ureteric junction, or it can be because of increased urine output during the fetal life, which is usually 4 to 6 times more than the infancy, and as well as because of normal physiological kinks during the developmental period.
So in this patient, now with this finding, what is your next plan of follow-up or management?
This is the ultrasound taken at the first week. I will call this patient after 4 weeks to do repeat ultrasound.
Okay. And if that shows similar persistent hydronephrosis, what will be your next step?
If it's a persisting hydronephrosis, I will put patient on follow-up with the ultrasound. I will call this patient on after 3 months and 6 months. I will do follow-up ultrasound.
Right. Now, if the second ultrasound shows that it is like 20-25 millimeter, would you do anything else?
Right, sir. If I notice any worsening of hydronephrosis or development of UTI, then I would like to proceed with further investigation, sir.
Okay, so this patient had a DTPA scan at 1 month of age. Now, these are some of the pictures you got. Now, what are the informations you are looking for in a DTPA scan when you get the report or when you get the images?
Right, sir. DTPA scan report consists of 3 things. First is a set of images. Second is numericals, and the third is the graphical presentation of the total counts versus minutes. In the first images, there is a contrast uptake, a radio tracer uptake by the kidney. Images shows. The second set of images shows the transit, intrarenal transit of the radio tracer, and the third set of image shows the excretory phase.
So as you see the little images on the top, what is happening with the intrarenal transit? Is it same on both sides, or is it different on between the kidneys?
So looking at first set of images, there is good radio tracer uptake on both sides, but intrarenal transit is good on the right side as compared with the left side. There is radio tracer accumulation is seen on the left side of the kidney.
Hello.
And what about the late films,
Hello.
like a 30 minutes and 1 hour film?
Hello.
Sir.
Hello.
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 Are we audible? Are we audible? Maybe the net is a problem at Nitish. You can see me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So looking at the second set of images, I can see the radio tracer excretion on the right side, but there is accumulation of the radio tracer on the left side. There is delayed radio tracer.
What about the 30
excretion.
minutes and 1 hour delayed film here?
Even after 30 minutes and 1 hour, I am able to appreciate radio tracer activity on the left side.
Okay, so there is a hold up there, right?
Right, sir.
What about the curve pattern? Do you see the curve pattern on both sides? How does it compare?
Sir, on the left side, after diuretics, there is less means after diuretics there is radio tracer activity is lowering, but it's not a good radio tracer excretion on the left side, while on the right side there is good radio tracer excretion after diuretics. That is type 1 curve, and on the left side that is type 3A curve.
Okay, so what is who described this curve pattern and what are the types of curves?
So orally described the curve patterns. There are 4 curve patterns. Type 1, there is normal excretion. There is rapid peak followed by the rapid downsloping of the radio tracer activity. Second, when there is low, there is no radio tracer excretion. 3A, where there is mild excretion after diuretics, and in 3B there will be more radio tracer excretion as compared with the type 3A, and the type 4 is Humphrey sign, where there will be 2 peaks.
Okay, so on the left side, it is not an obstructive curve, right?
No, sir. There is decrease in excretion.
Okay.
Excretion is there after diuretics.
Okay, and any other information you can get from the DTPA scan?
Yes, sir. There is information like T-half.
T-half,
Then
yes.
GFR, split renal function, can be calculated on the basis of
Based
DTPA.
on T-half, how do you classify the grading of the hydronephrosis?
If T-half is less than 10 minutes, it's considered normal, and between 11 to 20 minutes, it's considered intermediate, indeterminate, and more than 20 minutes is considered obstructed system.
Okay, and based on the timing of the diuretic, how do you classify renograms?
There are 3 protocols are there. First is F minus 20, F plus 0, and F plus 20 protocols. 3 protocols are there.
Okay. And when do you do F minus 20?
When this is usually done at the time of follow-up, when we have a DTPS scan which was previously done, which was equivocal, then we should go with F minus 20 to look for the kidney's response to the diuretics directly.
What is a well-tempered renogram?
Well-tempered renogram is done when there is good hydration of the patient is given after Foley's catheterization, and good area of exposure, of good field of interest is considered well-tempered.
Now, in this patient, based on these ultrasound findings and DTPA, would you have done a VCUG?
Sir, I'm not able to see the dilatation of the ureter, and I would like to do ultrasound, follow-up ultrasound.
Okay, but when will you do a MCU or VCUG in a patient with an antenatal hydronephrosis?
When there is any documentation of UTI, then I would like to evaluate this patient for UTI.
Okay. If you are suspecting reflux, when will you suspect a reflux in a patient with antenatal? What is the incidence of a security reflux in antenatal hydronephrosis?
Sir, antenatal hydronephrosis, 10 to 40% chances incidence rate according to Nguyen et al. 10 to 40%.
Okay.
incidence
If
rate.
there is a suspicion of reflux, what particular precaution you have to do during a DTPA scan?
Sir, first of all, I will put a catheter before doing a DTPS scan, sir.
Right. So that is the important thing which you need to know. Now, in this patient, the left kidney function is around 54%. There is stasis, but it is partially relieved by Lasix, and right kidney is 46%, which drains normally. Now, with this picture, what is your plan of further management?
Right, sir. Looking at these parameters, both the kidneys appears functioning good, sir. So I will not plan any intervention right now. I will put patient on follow-up.
And what will be your follow-up protocol? I mean, when will you do anything further?
Sir, I will call patient at 3 months and 6 months for ultrasound.
And do what investigation? Ultrasound.
Ultrasound.
Okay. Will you repeat a DTPA scan at some stage?
Sir, if I notice any worsening of hydroureteronephrosis during follow-up or any episode of UTI, then I'll do diuretic renogram.
Okay. And would you put them on antibiotic prophylaxis?
Depending on the obstruction, sir.
No, in this patient, would you put him on antibiotic prophylaxis or not?
No,
really?
sir. Not.
Okay.
No, I will not.
That's fine. Antibiotic prophylaxis is slowly becoming like out of fashion. Unless there is any distal obstruction, people generally, or grade 4-5 vesicular reflux, people generally avoid antibiotic prophylaxis. Now we'll go on to case 2. This is a 31-week antenatal ultrasound. Liquor is normal, weight is normal, right kidney is normal, left kidney SFU grade 3 to 4, and then anteroposterior diameter is 16 millimeter. Now, what is SFU grading and how does it help?
Sir, the Society for Fetal Urology grading system is used to subjectively classify the antenatal hydronephrosis, which is graded from grade 0 to grade 4. Grade 0, that is normal, no hydronephrosis. Grade 1, when there is mild hydronephrosis. Grade 2, when there is moderate hydronephrosis. Grade 3, when there is central and peripheral calyceal dilatation without any parenchymal changes. And grade 4, when there is parenchymal changes in form of thinning of parenchyma, is grade 4.
Is there any classification where this AP diameter is combined to give such a 0 to 4, 5 classification? Are you aware of any classification where the APD is also used?
Yes, sir. In 2014, Nguyen et al. Combined SFU and APD classification, and they brought up with urinary tract dilatation classification.
No, I'm not talking about that. So based on APD itself, there are some classifications which say that less than 1 is normal, more 1 to 5 is the grade 2, more than 1.5 is grade 3. So there are some classifications which help you to predict in the resolution rate. Okay.
Right, sir.
Now in this patient, antenatally diagnosed, what did I say? It was a 16 millimeter grade 3 to 4 hydronephrosis. What will be your counseling for this parent? And what will be your further plan in workup before birth or after birth?
Right, sir. Considering APD of 16 fits into the severe category of hydronephrosis, so I will put I will do ultrasound follow-up every 4 weekly prenatally during antenatal time, and I will do first ultrasound at 48 to 72 hours.
Okay. Now let me see. Now this patient comes to you with an ultrasound at 1 month of age. I'm not sure whether there is other report, but this report is available. They have delivered elsewhere. They have now come with a 1 month ultrasound report. Now looking at this image, you classified them onto SFU. Can you apply them here and then say what is the SFU grading here?
So looking at the ultrasound image, there is a parenchymal thinning as well as moderate to gross hydronephrosis. So it is SFU grade 4.
Okay, so this is a quite severe hydronephrosis, and the pelvis AP diameter is 32 millimeter. They have written. Now, based on this, what will be your next step of evaluation or management? What is the likely possibility here?
It's a likely possibility of uretropelvic junction pattern dilatation, sir. UPJ obstruction.
Okay, and what will be your next step in the follow-up?
So diuretic rhinogram and ultrasound.
Okay, so this is the diuretic rhinogram which was done at the age of 2 months, and this is the picture. What would you comment on this kind of curve? What you see?
So there is both sides. There is good radio tracer uptake is there. Intrarenal transit is good on the right side, but left side there is accumulation of radio tracer is there, sir. So there is holding of radio.
What kind of curve is it?
It's a type 2 curve, obstructed pattern.
Now this is an EC scan. How is it different from a DTPA scan? Previously, what we saw was a DTPA scan. This is an EC scan. Any other agent is there?
DTPA, MAC3, DMSA.
MAC3. No. For the washout curve, rhinogram, diuretic rhinogram, don't bring in DMSA. For diuretic rhinogram, there are 2 or 3 things. Basically, they are DTPA, EC, and MAC3. Which is a better agent?
So MAC3, mercaptoacetyltriglycine, is MAC3 because it has got a good extraction fraction of more than 55% and is also tubular secreting agent, sir. So it is preferred one.
Is there any advantage for EC or disadvantage for EC? How does it work? What is the mechanism of work between 3 agents? How does it differ between DTPA, EC, and MAC3?
Sir, DTPA excretion is mainly glomerular, and MAC3 secretes in tubular secretion, sir.
And EC is?
Tubular.
Probably both, a bit of both. But one disadvantage of EC is there's a lot of background activity, but it has got a slightly better shelf life and it is cheaper than MAC3. That is why it is commonly used in Indian subcontinent. Now here the report says that right kidney is 62%, drains well, left kidney is 38% with an obstructed curve. Now based on this split renal function, does it help you in deciding for any intervention, or how is it important?
Yes, sir. There is
normal split renal function. You tell that first.
So normal split renal function should be less than 5%, sir, difference.
Okay. So 45 to 50 is normal.
Normal.
Right. Okay.
45 to 50% is normal. Here, the difference is more, as well as marked decreased function on the left side. Right. So this will so I would like to intervene in this case, sir.
Okay. And what will your intervention be?
Sir, pyeloplasty, sir.
What are the classical indications of a pyeloplasty in a patient with antenatally diagnosed hydronephrosis?
Sir, any worsening of SFU or any deterioration of renal function and increased split renal function are some indications of intervention, sir.
Okay. Now, these parents want to know, can we wait for another 2-3 months? This is the first EC scan you have done. Right. So you have not really shown that there is a drop in function or there is a worsening of any kind. They're just asking, can you wait for another 2-3 months? Is that okay?
So we can put patient on follow-up and we'll do ultrasound and repeat DTPA to look for any deterioration.
Right. So the classical indication is like you can repeat it, and then if it is deteriorating, you can convince her. What kind of pyeloplasty is you thinking of in this patient?
Sir, pyeloplasty is modified dismembered pyeloplasty, sir. Anderson-Hine dismembered pyeloplasty.
Open laparoscopic?
Sir, open.
Laparoscopy is also possible. By the time you come to the surgery, probably the child will be like 5 months or something. So, infant pyeloplasties are reasonably being done these days. So laparoscopy is possible. If that is setup is not there, you can always go for an open pyeloplasty. And if you do that, will you leave a double J stent?
Yes, sir.
And how long?
For 3 to 4 weeks.
Right. Now let's go to case 3. This is a 31-week ultrasound, and these are the findings written there. Okay. Now, can you read that out and then comment on the important findings here?
Sir, this is antenatal scan report showing bilateral hydronephrosis with APD of 10.3 on the right side and 10.2 mm on the left side in the 3rd trimester.
Mm-hmm.
And bilateral tortuous ureter.
Okay. So what comes to your mind now?
Sir, I'm thinking in terms of, means first we have to risk stratify this patient, sir.
Now this ultrasound report, is it complete or not complete?
They haven't mentioned about the status of liquor, liquor,
Okay.
whether there is any oligohydramnios or no. Right. That is
So-
amniotic fluid index.
Okay. And what is the normal amniotic fluid index?
So normal is 8 to 16 is normal, sir.
Okay. So if it is reduced, what does it signify to you?
Sir, reduced when there is AFI less than 5, that is oligohydramnios.
So what does it denote?
So it can be attributed to genitourinary cause, sir.
Like what?
Like lower urinary tract obstruction.
Obstruction. Okay. And what other information, if they are given, would be helpful in the ultrasound? I think the ultrasound report is cut out or cropped. The bottom part is not there. So what other information would have helped?
I would like to know about the bladder status
Yes,
of the
you
bladder.
want to know the bladder, right?
Right,
So what does this look like to you?
so this is a classical keyhole sign.
Okay. And
Which is
the
seen
bladder
in,
wall is probably a little thickened also.
Right, sir.
So what is it suggestive of?
This is suggestive of a posterior urethral valve, sir.
Okay. Now, according to the UTD classification, what will be the UTD-A classification in this patient?
So UTD, there is dilatation of bilateral ureters as well as changes of bladder. So that is UTD A 2 or 3 intermediate risk.
So how many factors are there in UTD classification? UTD-A, antenatal.
UPDA, there will be anterior posterior renal pelvic diameter between 7 to 10 mm, along with the central or no calyceal dilatation in UTD-A1.
Okay.
In the after 28 weeks of gestation.
And UTD-A2 to 3, what is the difference?
So in increased risk, there will be peripheral calyceal dilatation and increased APD. In second time, in the 16 to 27 weeks, there will be more than 7 mm APD, and after 28 weeks, there will be more than equal to 10 mm APD diameter. Along with that, there will be parenchymal abnormality, appearance, parenchymal thickness abnormality, appearance abnormality, and bladder or urethral abnormality, along with and or unexplained oligohydramnios.
So in this report, what other information would have helped if it is there?
Parenchymal appearance, sir?
Yeah, so parenchymal appearance and presence of echogenicity, cysts, all those things would have helped. Now you think this is a case of a posterior urethral valve. What would be your counseling for these parents?
Sir, at the 31st week of gestation, I will counsel patient, parents to means I will do ultrasound, follow-up ultrasound after 4 weeks.
Okay.
I'll put the patient under follow-up.
Okay, so you want to follow them up. Is there any role for preterm delivery?
So preterm delivery before 24 weeks, when there is gross hydroureteronephrosis with parenchymal abnormalities and oligohydramnios, and there is a threatened, means there is chances of fetal demise, then yes, I will counsel.
No, I'm not talking about the termination part. I mean, you can tell that now that you have brought it up. Now, what are the poor risk factors where, when is the condition where in a posterior urethral valve, you may worry that this is a very bad risk and then it may be worthwhile terminating? What kind of patient is that?
Sir, severe oligohydramnios and parenchymal changes.
Okay, so bilateral increased parenchymal echogenicity and hydramnios, all those things are risk factors if you are detecting it in the early trimester, right?
Right, sir.
Okay. Now, in this patient, I think we have already discussed all those things in the previous class. Now, in this patient, what will be your plan after delivery?
Sir, my plan will be to do early ultrasound on this case, sir.
Okay.
Like
so we
within
got ultrasound report here. This is done 24 to 48 hours of age. Obviously, after birth, also know the sex of the patient. This is a male child and
Right.
male neonate. And then what are the findings you see here?
Sir, I'm able to appreciate in the first film, I'm able to appreciate there is dilatation of posterior urethra along with a thickening of bladder wall, and both the kidney parenchyma appears. There is thinning of bilateral renal parenchyma and dilatation of ureter.
So what will be the next step?
Sir, I would like to decompress the system, but I would like to know the status of the patient, sir, whether it is any
Patient
febrile.
is stable. Electrolytes are normal. Creatinine is 0.8, and there is no major issues with the patient. You got ultrasound. You got the patient on catheter. So antibiotics also have been started. So what is the next step now?
So next step, I would like to take this patient for posterior urethral valve fulguration, sir,
How do you confirm the diagnosis?
with the cystoscopy, with the VCUG, sir. I'll first confirm the diagnosis with the VCUG. Yes, sir.
And what does it show? The one on the right side is the patient's VCUG.
Right, sir. I'm able to appreciate there is dilatation of the posterior urethra along with the elevation of the bladder neck, and the bladder wall surface is irregular.
Okay. And what is the treatment for this condition?
So posterior urethral valve fulguration.
Okay, fine. Now we won't go down the line because we have already discussed it in a previous class. We now have this 31-week ultrasound, antenatal ultrasound. Can you describe the findings here?
Right, sir. I can see the kidney. There are multiple dilatation, multiple cysts in the kidney, and echogenicity appears to be increased.
Now, one of the reasons the UTD classification was introduced is because they did not want to commit it as a cyst, right?
Right, sir.
So they wanted to use certain terms.
Dilatation of minor peripheral calyces.
They didn't even mention the calyces, central dilatation or peripheral dilatation, right?
Right, sir.
So what is it? This is central dilatation or peripheral dilatation?
Peripheral dilatation, sir.
So this is the advantage for the UTD people, that they don't have to commit what it is. Now these fellows have said that it is UTD A2 to 3, parenchyma is poorly visualized, increased echogenicity, right kidney is normal, bladder is normal, liquor is normal. Okay, so
Right,
now obviously you are going to do a postnatal ultrasound.
Right, sir.
What is UTDP? How does it help?
So UTDP is a risk stratification in the postnatal period, where we'll see the anterior posterior renal pelvic diameter. Along with that, we'll see 5 ultrasound parameters.
Okay.
These are central or peripheral calyceal dilatation, parenchymal abnormality, and ureteral and bladder abnormality.
Right. So according to this particular classification, the current patient, what does it fit into? Which is UTD P1, 2, or 3? This patient has got an postnatal ultrasound report.
So this patient is having a high risk, that is UTD P3, because of parenchymal abnormality.
No, that is not an ultrasound actually, but what I showed you, this is the ultrasound for 48 hours after delivery. So renal parenchyma is replaced by multiple small cysts of varying size. The kidney size is actually given here. So this is the finding here. So the collecting system is dilated. I mean, peripheral dilatation is there. Actually, they have committed here in the postnatal ultrasound that the parenchyma is replaced by multiple small cysts. So here again, it probably will amount to UTD P3, right?
Right, sir.
Okay. Now, what is the next step in this patient? How do you, what is the diagnosis? How do you confirm the diagnosis? They have given it as a multicystic kidney. How do you confirm the diagnosis?
Sir, multicystic dysplastic kidney, when there is multiple varying sized kidney without any normal parenchyma, which is a histological diagnosis, sir. So I need tissue for the diagnosis.
No, that's okay. But how do you confirm before doing any intervention? Is there any way? I mean, you mentioned that there are parenchyma is replaced by cysts. So what will be the function be like in such a situation?
Sir, to know the function, I would like to do a diuretic renogram on this patient, sir.
Well, technically, when you want to analyze a poorly functioning kidney, hopefully, like in this situation, you will normally do a DMSA scan because that is better for a poorly functioning kidney to pick up any remaining function, right?
Right, sir.
Diuretic renogram is more used when there is suspecting a PUJ obstruction, whereas when you are looking at a poorly functioning kidney where you want to know whether you have to remove it or preserve it or locate it in a very poorly functioning, that is what you do. DMSA is slightly better to look at the functional detail alone, right? And here this is a DMSA scan at 1 month. What does it show?
This shows there is DMSA uptake on the right side kidney, but there is no activity on the left side, sir.
Okay.
No uptake.
So this probably is a case of
multicystic dysplastic kidney.
Now, what is the natural history of this particular condition? What happens over a period of time?
Sir, according to one study, there are 40% chance of spontaneous involution in case of multicystic dysplastic kidney. So I will counsel parents that there are high chances of spontaneous involution. So we can put this patient on follow-up.
Okay. So you just have to follow them up with what?
With the with ultrasound, sir.
Ultrasound. Mostly they will shrink, and then if it disappears, then you probably don't have to do anything, right?
Right, sir.
What are the typical indications for any surgery in a patient with a multicystic dysplastic kidney?
So when we notice any increase in size of the kidney or any hemorrhage, pain, any symptoms or infection, then we should plan to do nephrectomy.
What is one particular complication that can happen during the follow-up?
So hypertension.
Hypertension can happen. Yes.
Right.
So increasing BP, failure to involute or increasing in size, large mass, sometimes all those things are relative indication as you follow them up. Okay.
Right.
So that is about. And one more thing, in a patient with the multicystic dysplastic kidney, what is the abnormality that can be found on the normal functioning kidney, like in this patient, the right side? Is there something in particular you want to worry about?
Presence of PUJ obstruction or VUR on opposite
Not
side?
PUJ obstruction.
VUR?
VUR, yes. So there is an increased chance of vesicouretic reflux in a patient with either a single kidney status or a multicystic dysplastic kidney or any crossed fused ectopic kidney or a pelvic kidney. Any rotational anomalies can be associated with a higher chance of vesicouretic reflux. Will you do avoiding cystourethrogram regularly in these patients?
No, sir.
Okay, good. So we'll proceed further. Now this is the next case. This is an antenatal ultrasound. You can see the ultrasound report here. There is an absent right kidney in the renal fossa, normal left kidney. So what is the next step? The parents are really worried whether they want to know whether they want to go for termination, and they are worried that whether the child will need a renal transplantation in the future. So what will be your counseling for this patient?
Sir, I'll counsel patients parents regarding the regular 4-week antenatal follow-up with the ultrasound, and I'll tell patients attended that there are some chances of renal ectopia, which cannot be picked up in antenatal scan. And in case of renal agenesis, there with one kidney, patient will be able to do his normal activity,
Okay.
normal function.
So this is a DMSA scan which the patient had after a month or two. What does it show?
So this is a DMSA scan showing ectopic kidney in the pelvic area, sir.
Okay, so as I said, DMSA scan is very good for locating longly placed kidneys or rotational abnormalities or poorly functioning kidneys. This is the DMSA is particularly used in those situations. And we have to do it before to confirm that it is a single kidney status. Single kidney status is absolutely okay to have normal life expectancy. Only thing is they should avoid a nephrotoxic drugs, right?
Right, sir.
That is the only thing you have to tell them. Now we'll go to the next case. This is an antenatal left hydroureteronephrosis. The patient presented at 6 months of age with a urinary tract infection. Now you have two images on both sides. First to talk about the image on the left and then on the one on the right.
Right, sir. Left side images is of VCUG. There is normal VCUG images.
Okay. What is, I mean, particularly you want to say something is not there.
So
What
there
is
is
not there?
reflux is not there, sir.
No reflux. Okay.
Right, sir.
Hmm.
The second
And the
picture is
bladder contour is normal. So when you read the MCU or VCUG, you have to read like the anterior urethra is normal, posterior urethra is normal, bladder neck is normal, bladder contour is normal. There is no vesicular reflux. Okay, that is how you read it.
right, sir.
What about the image on the right side?
Sir, image on the right side is probably a delayed excretory film of the CT showing the dilated tortuous ureter.
Right.
On the left side.
What does it show?
It shows vesico-uretic junction obstruction, sir.
Okay. So this is probably a case of a obstructed megaureter or vesicular junction obstruction. And that is a renogram which is showing a hold up. Okay. What is the treatment for this patient?
So treatment will be ureteric reimplantation on the left side, sir.
Will you do it at 6 months itself, or will you do it a little wait and do it later?
Sir, I will do it at, after 1 year of life, sir. After completion 12 months.
Okay. And why is that?
Because there are high chances of resolution in the first year of life, sir. Because there are chances of this being a transient hydronephrosis.
Okay. When you do a reimplantation, what extra step you may have to do in such case?
I'm not sure, sir.
No, this is a case of what?
This is a case of obstructive. This is a vesico-ureteric ureteral pattern obstruction, sir.
No, there is a what is the or how do you describe that ureter? Like that ureter is normal in size?
No, sir. It's a dilated.
What is the term for that?
Mega ureter.
What is the diameter like when you say mega ureter? When do you say it's a mega ureter?
More than 7 mm dilatation, sir.
So in such a case, when you do a reimplantation, what extra step you may have to do?
Reduction of diameter of ureter.
So you may have to do a tapering or tailoring.
Tapering, tailoring.
Okay.
Right.
So that's it. Now in this patient, you want to wait during that time. Is there anything you can do to prevent urinary tract infection?
Yes, sir. I will put patient on continuous antibiotic prophylaxis for this case.
Okay. Anything else you can do if it is a boy?
Circumcision will help.
Okay, good. Circumcision can help reduce the UTI. Okay. Now this is a 3-month-old female infant who had an antenatal diagnosis of the right hydroureteronephrosis one episode of urinary tract infection, and this is where they have come. They probably were lost follow-up after birth, and then they have come with a 3-month-old ultrasound report. So this is after one episode. What is the finding on the ultrasound?
Sir, first image of ultrasound showing the dilated pelvic calyceal system along with the dilatation of the proximal part of the ureter. And the second image shows the distended bladder with ureterocele on the right side, sir.
Okay. Now, if you look at the ultrasound carefully, is the dilatation uniform between both like throat, or is it different within that kidney itself?
Sir, there is more dilatation is more on the lower pole, while the dilatation is less in the upper pole of the kidney.
Okay. Now, when you say there is a ureterocele, usually it is from which pole? Which part of the kidney is affected? If it is a case of a duplication, that's what you're suspecting.
Inferior pole, lower pole.
No, duplication usually is the ureterocele is usually associated with the dilatation of the upper pole.
Upper pole. All right.
Now, what are the abnormalities which are associated with the upper pole in the case of a ureteric duplication?
Sir, it can be associated with the UPJ obstruction, sir.
No. Upper pole or in a duplication can be associated with certain things. I've told you one of them is ureterocele. What else can it be associated with?
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay. Now, in any exam, and the questions, the line of questions doesn't exactly have to be on that case. It can deviate a little bit out of the way because they want to assess the overall knowledge, not just that belonging to that case. So that is why I just brought some out of context questions, because this is what typically happens in an exam, where you will be asked questions slightly away from that particular case. So what is Weigert-Mayer law?
So Weigert-Mayer law is dilatation, obstructive dilatation of the upper pole and the reflux of the lower pole moiety.
No, that is not the law, but now you're coming to the answer of that question. The second question has led to the answer of the first question. But what is Weigert-Mayer law?
Weigert-Mayer defined when there is a obstructive means dilatation of upper pole.
The obstruction, reflux and all the result of the law. But what does the law state?
Law state that the ureter of upper pole will insert cranial and lateral.
No, not cranial.
Caudal and medial.
Correct. And the lower pole will be
cranial and lateral.
So lower pole has got a reflex. Okay. And maybe they may have PUG obstruction also. The lower pole is more prone to have PUG obstruction. On the other hand, the upper pole, which is opening further caudally and medially, usually has an obstruction in the form of PUG obstruction or a ureterocele, or in a female child who can present with a constant dribbling of urine. What is that called?
Incontinence, because
when a female child has got a constant small quantity of dribbling, and then the ultrasound shows a duplication, what exactly you suspect in a female child with the wetting?
Sir, abnormal insertion of ureter.
Where?
Infundibulum.
Okay. And what is the term for that? When something is located abnormally, what is it called?
Ectopic insertion of ureter.
So, well, don't leave the insertion part.
Ectopic ureter.
Ectopic ureter. So ectopic ureter. So ectopic ureter can open outside the bladder neck into the vestibule, or it can even open into the
fallopian tube.
Well, vagina. Don't go
Vagina.
too far up, but it can open into other places. Okay. Now this is the image you have. The first image is a contrast, probably in MCU filling phase, or is it a late film of IVU? I don't know, because there's no catheter I can see it. Maybe it's a late film of an IVU. And then the other two films are CT images. So does it confirm your diagnosis?
So, yes, sir. It confirms my diagnosis of uretrosil and the duplication anomaly on the left side.
Okay.
Dilated.
But we said that uretrosil usually has got dilatation of the upper pole only, right?
Yes, sir.
So here, what has happened to the lower pole?
There is a reflux in the lower pole.
We don't know, because the contrast, we really don't have the MCU, but there is dilatation of the both moieties, right?
Right, sir.
Okay, so what is the initial management in the case of a uretrosil?
Initial management with a cystoscopic incision of uretrosil, sir.
Okay.
Incision of uretrosil.
Okay, so that is the initial management. And how do you classify the uretrosils based on their location?
Sir, ectopic ureter and normal.
Orthotopic.
Orthotopic.
Okay? You should use the
ectopic.
right terms. Okay, each term has to come. Now, this patient has had a puncture, and then these are the follow-up ultrasounds, and these are the follow-up MCUs and DMSA scans. No comment on this.
So first film is showing reflux on the right side with tortuous ureter. It is grade 5 vesico-ureteric reflux, sir.
Okay. Second film.
Second film, there is double ureter along with the tortuosity and dilatation of the ureter with the reflux into the pelvic calyceal system and blunting of calyces.
So reflux into both moieties, right?
Both moieties, right, sir.
Okay. Now, now that there is a mention about the function here, right?
Right, sir.
DMSA scan has been done and that shows function. So what is your management in this patient?
Sir, my management will be a nephroureterectomy of the right kidney, sir.
Okay. Now let us say that the lower pole is functioning okay, only the upper pole is affected, and the lower pole function is around some 30%. What will you do then?
Then I would like to do right heminephrectomy, upper pole heminephrectomy.
Okay. And what is that approach usually?
Approach will be retroperitoneum. Laparoscopic approach, sorry.
Good. Why is it advantageous to do laparoscopic?
We can do nephroureterectomy without any additional incision.
So you can go down and then remove as much as ureter, and you can also have a good magnification. You can preserve the lower pole vessels, all that. So that brings us to the end of this discussion. So to summarize, can you tell me again the causes of antenatal hydronephrosis? How common each condition will be there? Commonest cause to the least common cause.
Right, sir. If you look at the consensus published in 2014 by Guen et al., he noticed transient antenatal hydronephrosis in 50 to 70% of the cases, and uretropelvic junction pattern dilatation in 10 to 30, and uretral vesico-ureteric reflux in 10 to 40% of the cases. Other common causes are UPJ obstruction, UVJ obstruction, multicystic dysplastic kidney, lower urinary tract obstruction because of posterior urethral valve or Poon-Bailey syndrome, or urethral anomalies, or duplication anomalies are the common causes of antenatal hydronephrosis.
Okay, good. So that's about it. I think we will close this session. Again, thank you everyone for watching this, and thank you Bhaumik. Thank you Dr. Nitesh Jain. And with your permission, I will stop this.
Thank you, sir.